Hello and welcome to the TES Secondary Maths Resource of the Week number 53 with me, Craig Barton. Now, those of you who have been following this Resource of the Week series for the last few years will know that I'm a particular fan of resources that encourage student creativity in maths. Because there's a danger that maths can sometimes be seen as a little bit of a dull subject where you're either right or wrong and there's only one way to do things. Whereas, of course, maths isn't at all, and any resource that allows students to really express themselves and be creative and show different methods and different ideas, I'm a huge fan of. And this resource from the Maths Magpie does exactly that, whilst at the same time is also has the bonus that it's exam focused, so it's ideal to use with your Year 11 students when in the build up to their GCSE maths exam. So let's have a look at it. Make your own GCSE shape questions, and there's 3 of these, one on rectangle, one on triangle and one on circles. And if I just crack open the rectangle one first so you can get a feel of this. Now, it starts off looking a little bit on the dull side because what you've got here are the grade descriptors, G to C, with the different skills that the students need to inquire. Now, the first thing I quite like about this is it's written in student-friendly language, which is very nice. Write down a fraction of a shape shaded, how many times bigger is the area of one rectangle than the area of a small rectangle, and so on. There's none of your technical mumbo-jumbo that students and teachers, in fact, can't really understand. But how does the resource actually work? Well, if I scroll down to the second page, you'll see that. Just a blank rectangle. And then the challenge to students. Make up and grade as many GCSE style questions as you can using this rectangle. And now that's very open-ended and unstructured for students, and a lot of students, particularly the foundation students that this resource is predominantly aimed at, would be a bit daunted by that. But of course, here's their GCSE grade descriptors that can act as perfect prompts for this. So for example, if the students wanted to write a grade F question, they could just look at this prompt here, work out the area and perimeter of a 4 metre by 5 metre rectangle. And students could change that to maybe a 3 metre by 7 metre or something like that, and write themselves a nice little GCSE question about that and grade that question at a grade F. And they could keep working their way through the grade descriptors. Now let's just think of this, because it sounds quite simple, but there's a few powerful ideas going on here. Firstly, the students get to be creative and come up with their own questions. And if you've got the kind of students that can handle it, why not get them to write their own mark schemes as well? Or at least decide how many marks they would allocate for a given question and start to get into where each of those marks will be given. That's a really nice thing to get the students to do. Secondly, and possibly more importantly, this is giving them a real good feel for the different levels of difficulty that topics in GCSEs have. So straight from starting with finding area by counting by squares, we can get up to tricky transformations or combining algebra with areas and perimeters. So it gives students a really good overview of topics, and I quite like it when students get to see a progression as simple as this, because then they start to think, well, actually, if I'm currently working on a grade E, I don't actually have to do too much more to get to the grade D, and I don't actually have to do too much more past that to get to a grade C. When it's all simply laid out for them like that, I don't think they see maths quite as daunting. And that leads me to what I love about this. It provides the incentive for kids to stretch themselves. It provides that incentive for kids not to settle by writing a grade E question, to see if they can come up with their very own grade C question. And before you know it, you could well have a bundle of questions that have been written by students which are absolutely ideal to use for revision, put together in a booklet, stick on the wall or whatever, and you've got discussion points to be had there, questions for kids to answer. Absolutely fantastic. There's one on rectangles, there's one on triangles as well that we can just take a look at there, that just starts with a lovely little right angle triangle and then loads and questions about constructions and transformations and again algebra. Then we get a slightly more difficult one on circles, and we've got labelling parts of a circle, finding the areas of circles, circumference of circles, and so on. And one thing I would suggest at this stage is let's not limit this just to GCSE foundation students. I'm thinking of Year 8, even Year 7 students who would absolutely relish something like this as a different way to revise, or a different way perhaps to show you what they can do about a subject. Imagine you've got a class for the first time, or you're teaching them a topic for the first time and you've no idea what they know and what they don't know. Let's say about area and perimeter. Give them a blank rectangle and say, create me some questions. Give them the resource as it is. Create me some questions. What can you do with this? By all means, show them the GCSE grade so they can see what they're working at. But I don't think we need to limit this to GCSE students. I think this resource is bigger and better than that. I'm a huge fan of it. And I'd like to see more of these. I'd like to see more for number and data and algebra. I think this has got big potential. So there it is. Make your own GCSE shaped question, which has been kindly shared by the Maths Magpie. So thanks so much for that, and I shall be back with a fresh resource of the week next week. Take care and bye for now.